Mary Chaaban has worked as an instructional designer for more than 7 years. She loves collaborating with faculty who are passionate about their discipline and helping them to design and develop engaging online courses. She finds that her insatiable thirst for knowledge is satisfied by her work. She has taught online and ground courses at the collegiate level for more than 10 years. A proud Jayhawk, Mary holds a Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts in French from the University of Kansas. Julie Allen is a senior instructional designer at Arizona State University. She began her career as a journalist before transitioning to a role as a senior editor with an instructional design department at a large online university. She quickly fell in love with the world of instructional design and hasn't looked back since. She is passionate about building relationships with faculty and helping them design courses that are rigorous, engaging, and meaningful to students. Jill Jordan is an instructional designer on the Starbucks Initiative with Arizona State University, where she designs and develops open source online courses. She has over 10 years of instructional design experience with online and ground courses and loves pushing the envelope to discover innovative ways to engage learners across the globe. Her bachelor's in elementary education and master's in educational leadership were the springboards for her aspirations of being a lifelong learner and bringing educational opportunities to all. Okay. You may go ahead and get started.
You're all muted, ladies. You've got to unmute your mic.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just talking away, and here we go. Right, technology. When it works great, and when it doesn't, nobody can hear you. So thank you all for joining us. We're really excited to share with you some of the findings that we've discovered over the years working together collaboratively and just in the industry itself. In our presentation today, we are going to discuss the differences between technology versus innovation and provide you with some concrete examples on strategies on building an engaging online course. I think before we begin quickly, I just kind of want to, I know that Nancy gave us a really lovely introduction, but just to kind of give a round robin, I'm Jill Jordan, again, instructional designer at ASU. And
hi, I am Mary Chaaban. Actually, it's Mary Chaaban Arcuria. And I am also an instructional designer who works with Jill at ASU.
Hi, and I'm Julie Allen. I'm also an instructional designer with ASU Online.
Good. That way you can kind of hear our voices and know who's who as we present today. So our mission, if you would please.
I'm so sorry. I'm not changing slides. My apologies. Oops.
Down?
Yep. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Goodness. It's Monday. Please forgive us. We just got back from the QM conference on Saturday. All right, so we'll get started with the objectives.
Good. All right. So differentiating between technology and innovation, and just to forgive me, I'm just going to go off stream just a little bit. So with this specific learning objective, like what we were finding is a lot of our faculty were coming to us and they were saying, "Oh, I want to add technology to my course," and then the question that came about was, "Well, why? Why?" So engaging our faculty in what the reason behind adding that technology. And then others, we were like, hey, there are opportunities here. Your course has got a lot of material, but there might be some ways to add an engaging element to your course. So that, just to kind of give you some background onto where that learning objective came from. And then identifying the strategies for developing an innovative online course. And then we'll also review the strategies on how to implement this into your course. Oh, good. Okay. I'm advancing slides on my own, and I just want to make sure that Mary and I are tag teaming this. Okay, so if we were all present together in person, we have a really kind of unique activity that normally we would use Post-it notes for. But this is an opportunity to share some of the tools that you're currently working with. So you wouldn't mind, just post some of the tools, those third-party tools outside of your LMS, outside of your learning management system. Post some of the tools that you're currently working with, just to get an idea of where, yeah, great, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Like Google Forms and VoiceThread. I know here at ASU we use Yellow Dig, and it's great. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. So these are some of the tools that can absolutely add engagement to your courses, right? Like another opportunity to engage your students. Oh yeah, H5P. I always want to say HP5. I have no idea why. I think it rolls off my tongue better to HP5, but it's not. That's great. That's great. You can keep Zoom. Yeah, exactly. That's Camtasia. I use that one a lot too. Yeah,
These
great.
are great examples.
Yeah. So again, it's kind of a cool thing to go around with Post-it notes and see everybody's like this giant room full of Post-it notes. But this is the second best because I love to see the flood of technology.
Ooh, top hat.
Yeah, I actually used that.
Yeah.
I think it was my chem class.
Oh, really? That's very cool.
Okay, good. So this is also helpful too. So as you see things that maybe even you're interested in, you now know who could answer questions about that technology, because naturally, Mary, Julie, and myself, like we don't know everything about every technology, but we might as well utilize our resources, and this is another way to do that, is to see what everybody else is using. Okay, sorry, that was a little light. It's way more fun sometimes when you get to like stand up and move. Okay.
Yeah, so, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
All right, so thank you all for sharing. I think it's great crowdsourcing, seeing what tools you're using, because like Jill said, you know, I think we're always like stronger together, and we can piggyback off each other's ideas and things that you're using. So there's some of these I've never even heard of, so I look forward to, you know, looking more into what you're doing. But for today, we really make this distinction between technology versus innovation. So Jill kind of mentioned this. Sometimes we'll be working with faculty and they have questions about, or they want to implement technology. And the main reason they want to implement technology is because they want to be innovative in their courses. But as we all know, using technology for technology's sake doesn't necessarily mean that you're being innovative. And so we kind of make this distinction between, technology versus innovation. And so the first kind of just set the foundation. The idea is that while you can have technology and that can definitely enhance the learning experience for learners, simply using a tool doesn't mean it's innovative. It doesn't mean it's being creative. It's, I think the idea is we really want to work backwards. We want to use our objectives to really define and to really push which tools we're using. So we want to make sure that the technology that we implement is meaningful. But we can be innovative by even not using tools. There's other strategies. And we're going to talk about two different types of, we're going to talk about strategies that just use the LMS and then third-party tools. So our session today is really focusing on ways that we can be innovative in your classroom. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that it is a third-party tool. It could just be a tool that is built into your LMS. So that is just kind of setting the foundation for how we're really seeing the technology and the innovation. So we've kind of created this framework, and our framework is we have 1-star strategies, 2-star strategies, and really the idea behind the 1-star strategies is that a 1-star strategy is one that is either free or has a minimal cost. It's available in most learning management systems like Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, D2L, and more importantly, it has a very minimal learning curve. So it's something that if a student was to enroll in a course, they would most likely be able to use it, and the faculty would also have very little training required to be able to use it. The 2-star strategies that we'll talk about are those that may require a license. So they may be medium to high cost. A license is often required. Many of you, when in the chat, you talked about different tools, and some of those require licenses. And there may be a learning curve for both students and faculty. So that's kind of our framework. So we will go ahead and get into the fun part, which is talking about strategies.
Yeah, and we've broken these strategies down into our top 5. I'm sure that this list could be really long, but to try to add it meaningful in a very short amount of time, because we only have you for this hour. Again, our strategy here is to add meaningful technology, which is pretty much what Mary had said before. And another key thing, especially with being online, and I know that we have kind of talked about how it's difficult in this online setting, especially to be engaging, but adding the human element, which is again, you being able to see our faces, seeing our personalities. This is partly that emphasis on adding the human element. Another strategy is making it relevant, and we could go all day about making it relevant. Asking students for their feedback. Like, this is a collaborative effort, right? Like, when they're online, we don't want our students to feel like they're in an island. So ideally, we could get their feedback. They can participate in the learning experience, and then get them collaborating. So not just with us as instructors or as, as teams, but also with their peers. Like, these are the folks that they're going to be working with, they're going to be doing business with, that they're going to be, growing their careers with. So getting them involved with each other is going to be an important strategy as we, build effective online courses. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to kick us off here. Is it meaningful? So this comes up for me a lot with my faculty, and I'm going to give an example before you can read the slide so you kind of know where I'm going to go with this. But one of my faculty was really interested in using VoiceThread. And if you're not familiar with VoiceThread, it's a really cool I'm going to call it a presentation tool. It allows students to upload a PowerPoint or a document and basically record and give a presentation, but it also allows other students to participate in that. Like, they can give feedbacks, they can make comments on it, and it's a really neat tool. But when the faculty presented it to me, she said, I want them to use this for their introductions. And I said, and then what? But the learning curve that it would take them to learn VoiceThread just for an introduction, it didn't seem meaningful. So it's a cool tool and it has a lot of really great resources, but to use it just for the one assignment might not be the best use of that tool. So normally at this point, I would ask you, by a show of hands, how many of you have struggled to use a tool? And I'm pretty sure I'm going to get hands in the air all the time that tools take time, especially when they're third-party tools. They're not part of our LMS. So before you implement any tool, be sure that you know how you're going to use it, the benefits, and encouraging students to know the benefits of using that tool, how it's going to impact them. And I'm even thinking of Zoom, which is not on our slide here, but if they're going to use it in the outside world, then it's beneficial to use it in your course. It gives them that added element of stuff that they're going to be able to take away from not just your course, of course, but did you like that?
Yeah.
Of course, that was good. So again, our list here, Tableau, is a really cool tool that we're using with our Thunderbird School of Global Management. I probably said that wrong, but anyways, they do a lot of data. And this tool allows them to compile that data and form analysis based on that data. It allows them to pull beautiful charts. We actually use it here at ASU as well, so that license is getting full use. PlayPosit, Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram are things that our students, a lot of them, are already in. If there's a way to add that to your course, then that is a meaningful technology. It's going to benefit them. They're already in it. You can engage your students. I had a chem class that we use that as our discussion area. That was basically our hallway conversations, a way for us to communicate with our instructor. And it was something that I was already logging into every day anyways. So again, meet your students where they are, right? Yellowdig is another one we use pretty often here. In my opinion, it kind of gamifies discussions. It allows you to like posts, and actually we could go all day into Yellowdig. But and then e-portfolios, again, these are just ways, some tools that we use at ASU pretty often. And again, as long as they're applied in a meaningful way, we meet the students where they are.
All right, so this is Mary again, and I'm really going to focus on, I think we might have a question, but we'll come, let me see, I think we have a question in the chat.
Oh. How do you balance the social media tools, Facebook, etc., and FERPA? I mean, I can speak to that. We do recommend, I know in my courses where we are going to be using something that could potentially have FERPA consequences. Another example is teacher training, teacher education, where they're submitting work that their students have done, perhaps, or talking about students in a student teaching. We will usually put a note in the LMS, saying please be sure that you're not sharing anything that's personally identifiable, and we'll give them some structure. We'll give them some specifics on what they are not to share. And we've also had courses where we have embedded basically media release forms or things like that. where they're going to maybe interviewing somebody, and we will ask students to make sure that they get the media release or the release form signed and then upload that to the LMS with the assignments. I don't know if that helps.
All right, so this next session, I hope you can hear me. I think I might have seen someone make a comment that they couldn't really hear me, and I'll also try to slow down. I tend to talk really fast. You should hear me speak French. I talk even faster. But for this section, I'm going to kind of just talk about adding in the human element. So really, if we think about the human element, we're really thinking about instructor presence, social presence, establishing that sense of community in the classroom so that learners don't feel isolated at home or feel, they're kind of on an island all by themselves. And so adding in the human element is in my opinion, it's key to a engaging online course. So let's take a look at just a few strategies. Some are, again, we're going to talk about that framework. Some are the kind of the one-star strategies, those low-stake strategies, if you will. So announcements, discussion forums, and email. Those are three ways that we can add in the human element. Those are three very common tools that are available in just about every learning management system that I've ever seen. Announcements. One of the things that faculty can use announcements for is not just to post reminders. You can obviously use that for reminders. You can use it to let students, just give them a heads up about a quiz or an upcoming assignment. But what I've seen some faculty do is use the announcements to really post current events that allow students, or that allow learners and students to know that the content that they are learning, that the content that they're learning in the classroom is relevant to what's going on in the world around them. The other thing that I've seen faculty do is use the announcements tool and use the announcements tool as a way to basically summarize lessons learned from that week. And so I had one instructor who would create a video announcement and post it in the announcement section, summarizing key concepts from that week, questions that he saw in the discussions. He would also create a video in the same video announcements. One thing that he would also do is if he noticed that students were struggling on a particular concept, whether in the assignments or in the quiz, he would address that in the video announcement. That's a really great way to add in some instructor presence and show the students that it's a dynamic course. So the instructor is really paying attention to what the students are doing in the discussions or in the quizzes or assignments, and basically, as you would in an on-ground classroom, addressing any sort of concerns that he sees, anything that he feels would be beneficial. The discussion forum is probably the #1 tool for social presence. It's a great way to have students engaging with one another, having them share their personhood, if you will, something that really it creates a sense of community. And it's also a way for an instructor to show instructor presence as well. So they can see what the students are saying. They can post guiding questions, ask questions that really require students to delve a little bit deeper. And then lastly, email, which we think, oh, that seems kind of archaic. But I use the example in one of my online classrooms. I would try to send a personalized email to every student at least twice in the semester. Now, twice isn't very much in a 7.5-week course, but what I would usually do is I would email a student if I noticed that they did a really great job on an assignment. And I would use their name so that they knew that I was really talking to them. And what I found is in my evaluations, oftentimes is students felt that I really cared. And I really attributed that to the personalized email that I would send. Because I would send emails even just to say, hey, I noticed you did a really great job on this assignment. Keep up the great work, etc. And I would also email students if I noticed that maybe they did submit an assignment just so that they knew that I cared. So it was a way to really open up that line of communication among students. So I really feel like while these three seem very basic, very common, there's ways that we can use them creatively to add in the human element. So next up, I guess I talked about this. Goodness, I'm so sorry. So here, this is basically a summary of what I talked about. My apologies. I hope you have all these PowerPoints. Next up, we're going to talk about how videos and social media, this is kind of our 2-star strategies, how they can be used to add in the human element. So here are some videos. There are 3 very, very different videos that I that have been used in some of the courses that I have worked on. My apologies. We have a Meet Your Instructor video, just a basic weekly intro lecture, and then an end of course Q&A lecture. And so I'm just going to play about 30 seconds of each one, just so you can kind of see how different they are in terms of style and form. So let's go ahead and play the Meet Your Instructor video.
Michael Mahaffey, and I'll be your instructor for the Sustainable Urbanism course. I'm actually speaking to you from Stockholm, Sweden, which is one of the places where I do consulting work, and I happen to be right now. In addition to teaching, I consult around.
So the instructor, he is an urban planner. He teaches an urban planning course, a sustainable urbanism course. And he decided to create all of his lectures basically on set, if you will. So he used iMovie, and he recorded a lot of the video actually with his webcam or his phone. And then he stitched it all together in iMovie, added some text, etc. But the students loved his videos because it's him being authentic. It's him. He taught, when he gets into the subsequent lectures, he really uses these videos as an opportunity to show students the work that he's actually doing in the field. So not only is he talking about the content, he's showing how it's applied. And so students love these videos. This is, in my opinion, this is a really great Meet Your Instructor video, partly because it's just one that he created off the cuff. He said he had some coffee in the morning, and then he decided, you know what, this is beautiful here. I'm going to create a video. So it's just that easy. This weekly intro lecture is for a Bio 112 course, and it was a lecture that was recorded in one of our studios. So we have 3 primary studios at ASU, and this lecture is just an example of one of those weekly lectures. And the instructor really uses these intro lectures to kind of talk about what the students are going to be doing that week. And so it's really just a way to kind of set that context and get them excited about what's coming, as well as prepare them for the different assignments that they are going to have to submit. So we'll just watch a little bit. I think he's hilarious, so hope you enjoy this little.
Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to Bio 112, Why Sex? And I'm going to be your tour guide on what I hope will be an interesting course, a short course, only going to be 7 weeks long, into the mysteries and wonders of sexuality. Not a how-to guide, but more of a why guide. And so if you have any questions or problems, please feel free to reach me, email me. I always try to respond the same days that you guys email me. That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. If any of you ever want to meet, and I know some of you.
Okay, so this is just an example of one of his intro lectures. This is for week 1, as you probably guessed. It's a fabulous course that talks about genetics and, kind of goes into it. But you can see this is it's just an example of an intro lecture. Really, this is like the very, very beginning, but just a sample. And this last video that I wanted to just showcase is an end of course Q&A lecture. And what I love about this is these 2 instructors who co-taught this course, they basically did some crowdsourcing. So they used the discussion forum to basically have students submit questions that they had about the course as a whole. And it could be questions that related to the content, but it could also go beyond that. So this course was for it's advanced employment law. So the students had questions that they just were interested in, they could submit it. And so what these 2 instructors did is they culled those questions that were submitted through the discussion forum, and they created a lecture. And the idea here was really they wanted to address they wanted to address students' questions, but also get them excited about employment law, because most of the students, this is their NCAP course. They're graduating after they take this course. So again, just wanting to connect with them. So I'm just going to show just about 15 seconds just to see how it worked.
Well, we're at class number 7. I can't believe it's our final week with all the students, and we're very happy to finally be taping a class together. So I know that you have been working with Jody during the first part of the semester or quarter, and then the last few you've been listening to my tapes. So we're excited to be together, and we're going.
So that's just another example of a lecture. This one was recorded in one of our studios as well. But I hope that these just kind of give you an idea of the vast types of different lectures that can be used to add in the human element. I'm sure you've seen a variety. All right.
Sorry, I just want to jump in really quick because we've had several questions about the accessibility of tools, which I think we can just, so I think it'd be too hard to get into the accessibility of each tool that we're going to mention. I will say that it's important to look at the BPAT whenever you're evaluating a tool for licensing. VoiceThread, for example, you can upload, at least they moved away from Flash. They used to have a separate portal, I guess you will, for folks who were using screen readers that was not Flash based. I believe that they've addressed that. Will you? Oh, yeah. So I believe that they've addressed that issue. But I was going to say that for VoiceThread, we do have a disability resource center that will do closed captions for VoiceThread and upload those SRT files. But certainly it's an important consideration because we know everybody has a different budget, different scalability, this kind of thing. So and the videos, for example, we do have several resources available for faculty to create closed captions, which we know are, definitely a WCAG requirement and just good practice, universal design for learning. But definitely worth having a conversation with perhaps your disability resource center about how to make those tools and make sure those tools are accessible.
Thank you. And I think there was a question about the closed captioning for this course, and Julie did a great job of addressing that. All of these videos do have closed captioning available, and I believe we also have transcripts for at least these 3 videos. All right, so moving on, I'm going to just talk about Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and just how these were used. And the idea here is that they can be used in a variety of different ways, but I'm going to try to really give you some examples of how they were used for the course. So Facebook, so one thing I think there was a question earlier about the privacy of Facebook, and actually what we did is you can set up private groups within an institution. So in order to use Facebook in this one course, what we did is we had a private group, students which they had to join, but then there was a moderator who would accept the student joining that group based on whether they were actually enrolled in the course. However, the only way that they could access the group is if they were enrolled and had the link for that Facebook group. So it's a private group. Facebook was used as a way really for students to post articles. It wasn't for this one course I'm thinking about. It really wasn't used to assess students, and it wasn't really even used to give students a grade. The idea was it was really just to create a sense of community among students. And so what students could do is they could share articles, they could share links. And at first I thought, wow, if we don't assign points, our students are going to really use it. But what we actually found is in this chemistry course, this ended up being kind of in many ways, their way of connecting with students, but also sharing resources. And so we found that, lots of students participated. They used it in a variety of different ways to really just connect with their peers, to share resources, to provide links to articles that pertain to course content. So it was really creative. Another course used Facebook, and it was for an architecture course. And what students did is they were given a word of the week. So the instructor had like 20 words throughout the semester, and they were basically given a couple words a week. And they could choose which words. They just needed to complete 10. It didn't matter which ones. They would get extra. I think they got some extra credit as they completed 10 word of the weeks, if you will. And the basic idea was that they would post a picture that illustrated the word, and then they would have to write a definition. And so what was great is that students are learning about these architectural, concepts, but then tying it to actual visuals in the real world. So if they're talking about a buttress, maybe they might post an image of the Notre Dame, and the buttress is in Notre Dame, the Gothic, the Gothic architecture. So that's one way that Facebook was used, again, just to get students connected. Instagram was used in a digital photography course. The instructor set up the Instagram I don't know if it's called a handle. I think it's a handle or page, if you will. Gosh, I don't use Instagram very much, can you tell? But it was really creative. So in this digital photography course, students would post their images that they took themselves, and then they could critique each other. They would leave comments on each other's photos. So it was a really great way of using a tool that's, yes?
Oh, sorry. No, I just wanted to jump in. So sorry, and say that it's also cool because students formed a network. They could follow each other on Instagram.
Oh, yes.
And they left the course with a social network.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And so it's a really great way of using a tool that's already available to students. Many of them are already using it for a course. Lastly, we had an internship course. So it's the last course in this sequence of courses for a urban planning program. And the students had to take they had to do an internship. So one of the things that the instructor was really interested in doing was connecting the students, again, in a way that would help them develop some sort of professional network. So we thought, well, you know what, let's not create something, let's use LinkedIn. So she set up basically, or in the course, the students could link, obviously they can connect with other peers via LinkedIn, a professional network, so that they are building their network as they get ready to graduate and move on to their career. So this internship course used LinkedIn as a way to just help students with that endeavor. All right, let's move on. So Julie will talk about making it relevant.
All right. All right, thanks everybody. So really quickly, just wanted to talk about too that, talking about, innovation and making things relevant obviously is a huge part of innovation, right? I think it's fair to say that you could have the most amazing newfangled tool in the world, but if it's not something that you personally find use for, it might not really be, that exciting, right? That useful. So, technology really, if you're not thinking about, the relevancy again to your objectives, your outcomes, it's really just kind of almost, I would say, decoration. So, really thinking about, oh, Mary, sorry, could you advance the slide?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. So again, when we're talking about relevancy, we're really thinking about our objectives, right? What are the skills that you want students to be able to demonstrate by the end of the course? And it's something that you don't need to invest a lot of time or money. Again, going back to our framework, the 1-star and the 2 stars, there's a lot of common tools such as Microsoft Word and the tools in your learning management system that, really allow you to be really relevant and really innovative and without spending a lot of money on third-party tools. And, thinking about the types of things students we need to do in their profession and using available tools to really mimic those tasks and to give students practice doing those types of important tasks. So we end up brainstorming a pretty big list of, low investment strategies, again, those 1-star strategies, and we picked the 3 that we thought were the most exciting, which is, assigning reflections, which again, if you're familiar with the universal design for learning framework, oh boy, tongue twister today, reflections are, a really big part of that, in allowing students to really reflect and create meaning for themselves, creating real world deliverables and contextualizing problems or events. So could you, okay. All right, so to begin, we're going to talk about, again, making it relevant and assigning reflections on students' learning. So hopefully you can read this. I know it's a little bit small, but we wanted to give an example of an assignment that really would just take advantage of something in your own LMS. And that is, review this week's assigned readings, write a blog post of at least 300 words in which you complete the following, summarizing, reflecting upon the week's readings. But really the bigger part is, again, drawing connections between the readings and your current or past work, your field placement, your volunteer experiences, or other life experience. So again, making that connection to, between what you're learning, what you're doing in class, and like how you're really going to use it. And, this may not be inexpensive, use any fancy tools. You could use, in Blackboard, there's a blog tool. In Canvas, you could just have them submitted as in a text form field. But it's something that would feel really innovative to a student because, again, they're making that connection. They're really helping to frame that experience, that assignment in terms of the usability. The next slide would be to create real world deliverables using a scenario or a case study. So, again, an example, in this case, we had this was for a health nursing course. And so, again, imagine that you work for a hospital where the rate of post-surgery infections have been increasing. You have been tasked with creating a job aid that will help surgeons, nurses, and other Operating room staff, remember best practices for preventing infection. So create a surgical safety job aid, such as a checklist using Microsoft Word or another tool of your choice. The job aid must include the steps that need to be followed in the following phases. So the idea being that, again, this is not a fancy, they can use Microsoft Word, they can use something that's already installed on their computer, they can play around, they could use Canva, they could use some of the free tools out there, and they could make it as fancy or as simple as they wanted to, but the idea being that they're meeting their objective, which is, again, identifying these safety steps, but they're doing it in a way that they can kind of, use their creativity and yeah, they can make it really relevant, and it's something that they could take with them. I think that's the part that's innovative, right? It's something they could take with them. They could perhaps put that in a portfolio, or they could even, if they're a practitioner, perhaps they already, have an associate's degree and they're going for their bachelor's degree. Maybe they're working in a hospital. This is maybe something they could take to their boss and actually implement. So, again, instead of maybe something like a multiple choice test or something like that, doing something that really is something they could take with them and they could put into practice in a place of employment. So our final example is contextualizing problems or events. So, in this particular case, this would be a history course, thinking about, the Pax Romana being the topic. So, writing a paper, a paper may not seem super innovative, but again, thinking about the major lessons you think citizens in the United States could learn from the Pax Romana. So the idea being that, putting it again into that real world context, instead of just kind of this theoretical knowledge, it's really thinking about, how is this relevant to me today, right? This event happened so long ago. Why am I studying in this? Why is this useful? Especially, maybe our students who aren't history majors or maybe are taking this as a general requirement, but really, again, like putting those lessons into context, like, oh, yeah, okay, the history does have something to teach us about the current moment. So, again, that's a simple Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So nothing too innovative or too expensive or new there in terms of tools. So then finally, we wanted to talk about, so sometimes it's worth integrating tools that require a little bit more investment. So that's when we're getting into our 2-star. And so we want to talk really quickly about some moderate to high investment strategies that we've employed with some good success, which is using authentic technology tools, developing a portfolio, which we kind of talked a little bit about earlier, and recording a demonstration. So using authentic technology tools, we had, the idea was that, as a classroom teacher, you're responsible for communicating with parents about events at the school, what you're currently working on in the classroom, and upcoming events such as field trips and so on. And so the objective for this course was that students were to essentially apply strategies to communicate effectively with parents. And originally, I believe the instructor had their students doing a paper, and she really found that students weren't very engaged. And so she kind of wanted to think about, like, what's something that a teacher would actually, what's a type of interaction that you would actually do in the real world, I guess you would say. And so we came up with the idea of creating a website, because generally speaking, that's something teachers have to do in order to communicate. It's an expectation for communicating with students' parents. So we actually gave them a case study. We gave them, an example. Here's a situation. Here's what's going on. Here's some of the concerns you're getting from parents. And they actually had to create a website using Google Sites or WordPress. And Google Sites especially is something that anybody who's got a Gmail account has access to. And they actually had to create a website that would be appropriate for that situation. So again, just kind of a cool way of making it relevant and making it, I guess, I don't want to say useful, because all of our assignments are useful, but just something, again, that's very relevant to what they're going to have to do. So developing our portfolio, and this is something you could, integrate a third-party tool, but even there's a ton of, Google Sites is another example of a free tool. You could definitely create a portfolio using a free WordPress or Google Sites. But so the idea being that employers, generally speaking, when students graduate, they're looking for experience. Like, the degree is definitely very helpful and very important, but, they want to see examples of what students can do. And if you are having students build a portfolio, especially through a program, this can be a fantastic way of really showing employers what students are able to do, what the skills are that they can bring to the table when they graduate. And finally, recording a demonstration. So this is something we used to have a tool called Practice. Unfortunately, we actually are no longer licensing it. But this is something you could do through Screencast-O-Matic, do some other free tools out there, because basically what we would have students do is, well, in this particular case, the idea is that they are performing an experiment, recording themselves performing the experiment, and then reviewing the demonstration videos posted by teammates. So this is something you could have students, record on a cell phone camera or a Screencast-O-Matic, so any kind of a demonstration. VoiceThread is another example, and then have students give feedback. They could post that video Screencast-O-Matic, right? They could embed that directly in a discussion forum, and then students could give feedback based on that. Practice is actually a really cool tool. It integrates integrates the feedback component. So students just go to one portal and then they offer feedback through a prescribed sort of procedure. But again, just I hope some sort of relevant real world examples of different ways to make things relevant.
Okay, so come back to you. Hi. Okay, so another aspect of our strategy that we were looking at too is to get the students involved in their own learning process, right? Like the goal too with an online course is to create intrinsic learning. Like if you can be a part of your learning, you are going to retain that information longer. And the idea behind this is to go ahead and ask for their feedback. Again, just that innovation process can be having the students come up with that. These folks are out in the real world and they're learning and they're growing and they have so many great ideas. And all of us, we see this stuff over and over again. So getting them involved with so many brains in all of our courses, their amazing work has come from students contributing to their courses. So I think it's this next one. Yeah, perfect, great. So, and I'm not gonna read this slide too. We have our 1 stars and this is mine, right? Okay, we have our 1 stars and our 2 stars, but I'm gonna kind of go off key just a little bit. Some things that I had noted in some of the classes that I'm seeing even coming together now are when faculty ask students, for example, to help them create test questions, which at first, when I first heard this, it seemed a little elementary to me. But at the same time, when we get into these complex concepts, how do we learn best? By teaching others. So a way to engage our students is to ask them to come up with test questions. And another, to piggyback on that, is to ask them for feedback throughout the course on either what they're learning, on if there's a different way that you could present the information. But getting them involved, it is innovative. Like they're so used to, I'm gonna sit in this desk or I'm gonna sit in my house by myself and I'm gonna log into a computer and I'm gonna submit my discussion post and then I'm gonna pass this class. By asking them to participate, to be part of the instructional process, we not only engage them, it's not only innovative, it is now, they're becoming intrinsic learners. They're gonna start to participate in this course in a totally different way, and the expectations are gonna change. Another one that I've used a lot is having students create the rubrics. So if you're gonna have a paper that's 15 pages, which can be very mundane, have them help you create the rubric, right? Have them help you design what is the expectation for the assignment. And getting them involved in it is just another way of being innovative without having to use technology. Let me make sure I hit all my key. Yeah, yeah. I truly, there's so many different ways that we can go round and round with getting your students to be a part of your course. But again, getting them to be somewhat of the instructor, and peer reviews is going to come into that too, is having them evaluating each other. Just another way to add that student feedback element.
All right, so let me go ahead and start my camera really quickly here. Sorry. Okay, so really quickly, we are going to go through, get them collaborating. So we know that from research, right, that helping students feel connected to their peers is a predictor of success. And collaboration is also a huge 21st century skill, especially online collaboration. I mean, just about every field, I think these days you're going to be doing some kind of a video call or working with folks who maybe are in a different time zone. So we thought about how we use different tools to get students collaborating, and we hope some of these ideas will be of interest to you. So here are some low investment, again, our 1-star, some low investment strategies for getting your students to collaborate. So one idea is creating professional learning communities using groups. So that could be something as simple as just forming students into groups and encouraging them to discuss whatever it is that they're working on, to bounce questions and ideas off of each other. It could be something maybe you just assign participation points. Setting up peer reviews using group tools. So certain LMSs, I know Canvas has a peer review built directly into it, but this is certainly something that you could do just using a discussion forum. Having students post a paper, let's say, into a discussion forum, attach it, and then asking students to go ahead and just assign themselves to different peers, and then offering that feedback as a response in a discussion forum. Lots of different ways to do peer reviews, but also a great way to really help students get chatting, and then hopefully also, as a side benefit, helps you get a much better assignment back at the end of the day, which will hopefully require less grading time, which we know is also a huge concern. Get them collaborating, so using, creating problem-based learning opportunities. So maybe this is something that they're actually going to look at, maybe a case study or a real-world problem. Again, putting them in groups and then asking them to, even if it's not a group deliverable, because we know students don't always love group activities, but maybe it's something that they just bounce ideas off of each other, or they work in some limited fashion as groups, and then even create their own deliverable at the very end. And then, building class resources using a wiki tool, or even something, Yellowdig is actually a great tool for this type of activity. That's something where it's just, nothing too time intensive, just something where they're maybe sharing links, they're sharing different resources, they're sharing, maybe they share a link and then they share 100-word reflection on why that tool is helpful and why it's useful. And then that's something that even students could maybe download at the end of the course and take with them, and you have that as a professional reference later on, maybe in a future class or even in a professional context. So there are some strategies as well using two-star investment strategies. So, maybe having them collaborate on a project using Google Meets, Zoom, Google Meet, Google Docs. That's a free tool, or most of these tools are, Google's free for everybody. But maybe a little bit more time intensive. Usually one student has to set up the meeting. And so in terms of their time, that might be a little bit more intensive, but I had a faculty member do a really cool activity where students prototyped. They actually used like a whiteboard, an online whiteboard, but they actually sketched out, like they met through Google Meet so they could chat and have a real-time chat, and then they were prototyping in this tool, and then they had to do a reflection. It was to basically teach them about different roles, different project management roles. And they swapped, roles, and it was actually really cool. The reflections were really interesting to read. It seemed like students really learned a lot from that experience. Creating Google Forms for peer review assignments. So, taking that Google that, maybe you're doing that peer review in a discussion forum, taking it one step further and having students give feedback on the peer reviews using Google Forms. And, setting up class debates using VoiceThread or YouTube. VoiceThread, this is something one of Mary's faculty members did, where they actually did a debate. They created, the faculty member posted slides in VoiceThread, and then students actually just posted to that slide back and forth. So it was kind of mimicking the face-to-face experience of having a debate, but it was asynchronous. They were just using their cameras to do that, recording themselves. And it was a really cool assignment, but you could easily do something like that with, YouTube, Screencast-O-Matic, these kinds of free tools where students are recording themselves, embedding the video in the discussion forum, and then just, going back and forth in the discussion forum. All right, so with that, that takes us to the conclusion of our presentation. We really appreciate your time. We definitely want to make sure that we have time for some questions, because I know we haven't been very good here about keeping up with the Q&A chat.
Just because there's so much good information, and we wanted to make sure you had it all.
So we have a question about, do you prefer using resources like these outside of the LMS? Aren't you afraid that students using Facebook would fall into the rabbit hole and get off task? I think as long as the third party, the social media tool, is really relevant to your objectives. I mean, let's be honest. If students want to get off task, right, they're going to get off task anyway.
Well, I'm gonna just tag team on that. So I actually took a chem class because I was silly and wanted to try to, I don't know, be better this time, right? I'm much more mature now, so I can take chem again. But we had a Facebook page, and at first, like, it became like this what is that? Where people were just nagging, like, oh, this is so hard and this is so confusing. And the instructor literally went on, and she was like, it literally took her twice. So in a 7.5-week time frame, she only had to post it twice. But this Facebook page is for collaboration and positivity. So if you basically, and she said it much kinder than I'm probably going to say this, but if you have some complaints, maybe you should post that somewhere else. And she was very political about it, and it stopped almost immediately. So I think that comes kind of back to that classroom management idea.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So thank you. That's a great question, though. And that's always the risk with online, right? There's so many, your phone and all these fun things and ways to get off task. So what tools are there out for closed captioning if the video is not in YouTube? So we actually, I mean, in terms of free ones, YouTube is the best one that I know of that's free. There's Rev is a great service that costs $1 per minute of video. Yeah, I mean, in terms of free, I can't think of really anything off the top of my head except for YouTube, unless you're talking about buying software, which is not free.
Right.
But 3Play is another, that's the numeral 3 and then play, all one word. They're another very common closed captioning service that a lot of universities use. But yeah, that just probably comes down to, cost and quality and these kinds of things. But those are a couple that I would recommend looking into. Let's see. Are there any privacy laws that could be broken when using Facebook for posting articles and responses that are part of the graded course? No, I mean, I can't.
No, because again, they're not going to post their own grading. You're not going to post grades to it. This is just a collaboration tool. So I think the most complicated part truly of using a Facebook or an Instagram is how you're going to grade it.
Yeah.
Like that.
And I think also just being careful about what you ask them to share.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel like, if you're asking them to share something in social media that maybe would be please make sure you, I don't know, this is a really ridiculous example, right? Nobody would do this, but please make sure you post your address to Facebook, right? Like that would be a appropriate, nobody would actually do that, right?
Or your phone number. Don't put your phone number.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think just, maybe being careful in your instructions to, kind of maybe, be careful about, what they're sharing, and maybe even give them some guidelines. Like, you could link to maybe a couple articles even that, basic online safety type of things.
And you make the disclaimer too that students shouldn't be sharing grades, right? So this isn't like these social media tools are not, again, they're collaboration, but it's not an outlet for students to be able to, again, discuss grades. That's kind of a classroom management thing, but it's really designed for them to be able to upload and share information.
Yeah. And then I have a question about, I'm wondering why I would want to use the blog tool instead of the discussion board. Is there some advantage? Not necessarily. I mean, we had set that up using the blog tool, and this course I worked on a while ago, and I can't remember why we used the blog tool. There was something about the functionality of the blog tool that the instructor liked. But you could certainly do reflections in a discussion. That's why I think we want, there's different, like at least in Blackboard, I'm thinking of Blackboard, there's different privacy settings, right? Like a journal would be private between the instructor and the student. A blog, I think you can set to be private in Blackboard, but so that would probably be something to think about in terms of like how much you wanted other students to see of their reflection. But yeah, I'm sorry, that's not a great answer, but there was something about the blog tool specifically. I remember talking to the faculty member, and she liked the blog tool, liked the format of the blog tool. But certainly you could do reflection in just an assignment submission or in a discussion board. Hopefully that answers your question. And then could you please post the URL or names for the closed captioning service? Oh yeah, absolutely. You know what? Mary, could you advance to the next slide? Because I was going to say we have our email addresses, our contact email addresses here. So I'm jmessne@asu.edu. Jill Jordan is Jill Jordan at asu.edu, and Mary is Chaaban, that's CHAABAN @asu.edu. And the closed captioning, if you want to just shoot me an email, again at the jmessne@asu.edu, I would be more than happy to share you the links. I actually did a presentation at the QM annual conference on the 3 closed captioning services that we use. And I'd be happy to show you, share a copy of that presentation with you and get you those links. Oh yeah, the objective build, the ASU Learning Objective Builder. Yes, that's, to be perfectly frank, that thing is so old and outdated. We are definitely looking into updating that. We've just hit a couple of snafus that are preventing us from doing that right now. But no, thank you. That is, yeah, absolutely on our radar. How would you accommodate students in rubric creation or assignments? Will you share the assignment and ask them how student would address?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm sorry, we're cutting close on time, so I want to be cognizant of that. But yes, I think you can send a poll, and maybe you can even pose to them like the 3 recommendations you were having for the assignment, and then have them vote on what they think would be the best of the 3 or how they would approach it. But even having them like create, asking them, I need 3 expectations for this assignment. So, and maybe it's that you give them the flexibility to choose the assignment, thus then dictating which rubric you use, right? So it doesn't have to necessarily be them creating the rubric. It can be that these are the 3 rubrics. If you want to send me an essay, here's the rubric for the essay. If you want to send me a video, here's the rubric for the video. If you want to send me a poem, here's the rubric if you're going to send me a poem.
Yeah, that's a great application to, again, Universal Design for Learning, which really talks about allowing students to sort of choose modalities that best fit with their skills and their learning preferences. And so that could be a great way too, like creating a rubric that's universal, right? So it's kind of going over, this is what, I don't care if you write a presentation or create a presentation, write a paper, create a poster, create an infographic, whatever,
whatever you want to do.
Here's what it needs to contain, and just making that sort of universal enough that that can be applied to any kind of deliverable.
Yeah. So there's a lot, we could go a lot round and round with different options, and but it's a really great question, and I wish we had more time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much for your fantastic questions. We really appreciate it.
And your time. I know this is like the middle of your day. Well, maybe for some of you, the end of your day.
Yes, just want to thank you all for joining us today. I know we're out of time. Feel free to email us if you have additional questions, and we'll be happy to get back to you. And we look forward to chatting with you.
Jill, Julie, Mary, thank you so much for sharing your experience with the participants today. And for those of you who joined us, thank you very much for joining us for the webinar today. We did record the webinar, and we will be sending out a recording link to all of the registered participants so that you can review anything you heard today. And we do have a couple of other workshops coming up this week that they're on your screen, and I will share the link to register if you want to get more information about those.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.